Most observers assume that adding diverse voices to university reading lists marks a victory for intellectual equality. We tend to view the appearance of marginalized authors in textbooks as proof that systems are finally opening up to uncomfortable truths. This perspective suggests that representation leads to enlightenment. However, this assumption ignores how existing power structures preserve their own stability. When we see radical ideas integrated into standard courses, we should ask if this inclusion serves the goal of genuine education, or if it serves the goal of maintaining control. The presence of these texts might suggest a shift in power when the reality is far more static. Integrating radical black theory into established academic canons is like adding a muffler to a combustion engine, because it dampens the noise of dissent to ensure the machine keeps running without disruption. When institutions adopt these thinkers, they strip away the sharp edges of their arguments to make them palatable for a classroom setting. This process involves selecting specific passages that focus on personal experience while ignoring the systemic critiques that demand fundamental change. By framing these works as historical artifacts, professors teach students to appreciate the prose without taking the underlying message seriously. The institution treats the writing as a finished product to be analyzed instead of a live call to action. Consequently, the radical intent behind the words disappears, leaving behind a version of the philosophy that is safe, predictable, and ultimately ineffective at changing the status quo. Students learn to discuss these thinkers in ways that validate the current system instead of exposing its flaws. Consider a student enrolled in a political theory course that includes a chapter on colonial resistance. The professor assigns a text by a prominent black revolutionary, but limits the discussion to the author's observations on identity. They ignore the chapters where the author calls for the dismantling of economic systems that perpetuate inequality. The student completes the assignment feeling informed, yet they remain unaware of the structural critiques that the author intended to provoke. The syllabus presents this material as a balanced view of history, but the selection criteria ensure that only non-threatening concepts reach the students. This student graduates believing they have engaged with radical thought, while they have only interacted with a version of the work designed to fit comfortably within a traditional framework. The institution succeeds in appearing inclusive, but the core message of the author is lost in the process of academic packaging. The student leaves the room with their existing worldview largely unchallenged by the material they studied. I believe that the current trend of curriculum diversification often works like a method for silencing dissent. By inviting these thinkers into the fold, institutions gain the authority to define how their work is understood. This control allows the academic establishment to define what counts as acceptable discourse. Once a revolutionary idea is contained within a syllabus, it loses its capacity to incite real change because it is now tethered to the very structures it sought to overthrow. I find this process deeply problematic because it creates an illusion of progress while reinforcing the status quo. We are told that we are broadening our horizons, but we are actually narrowing the scope of what is considered permissible to think. It is a strategic move to neutralize the most potent aspects of critical theory by making them appear as just another set of ideas to be graded. I suspect that if we stop trying to fit these thinkers into existing molds, we might finally hear what they were trying to say. We must consider whether our current methods of teaching actually prevent us from engaging with the true intent of these writers. Is it possible that our academic environment is designed to ensure that we never encounter a truly disruptive perspective? We tend to measure academic growth by the volume of names added to a syllabus. This metric misses the point if the goal of education is to challenge our understanding of the world. If our goal is to maintain comfort, then our current approach is perfect. If our goal is to understand the world as it exists, we must look at how we treat the ideas that refuse to be tamed. What would happen if we stopped trying to make these radical thinkers fit into our existing